In the assisted living industry, there's a standard of practice that turnover in the caregiver role is an acceptable practice. But I understand that you all have a different viewpoint. So I want to talk with you today about what's your philosophy that you don't have to just have caregivers revolving through a door, if you will, that you can actually keep them, retain them, and maybe even engage them and grow them into loyal fans of your business. So I'd like to hear from each of you on how we do that. How do we stop that revolving door and actually keep our employees with us for a longer period of time and happy? So Briana, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that it's always important to get to know the backstory of our employees, because when you learn their backstory, the things that come up while they're employed by us can be explained a lot by the experiences they had in life before coming to us. We should expect some mistakes to be made and be there to help coach people through them. And a lot of the people that we hire, nobody else is going to give them a chance. We want to be the ones to give them a chance, and hiccups are going to happen along the way. So,
Janice, as an entrepreneur and owner in the business, how do you view this labor pool that we're working with and your philosophy on hiring?
Yeah, actually, when Briana said that they might not be eligible for employment other places, or a little bit of me said they actually view themselves as caregivers, that's what their families have done, that's what their mother does, it's what their sister does, and they think of themselves as caregivers. So actually understanding that and then playing upon what they bring, the attributes there. Laura talked a little bit about how they don't behave like Laura.
No.
And that's actually a good thing.
No.
Not meaning there's anything wrong with the way Laura.
No, thank you.
But,
thank you so much.
We need people to caregive. And the fact that they want to do the job, and we need to have somebody do the job. So I find that it's really important to connect with them, to understand where they're coming from, respect them, and then end up adjusting ourselves so that we can create an environment in which they want to be.
You actually started your business around a philosophy from Ruby Payne. Can you tell us why you latched onto her philosophy and how it ties into growing your business?
Yeah, I've been in assisted living since the mid-1990s. And when I first came into assisted living, like many people, I thought, well, it really is about finding the more educated, the better worker, the person who actually brings everything on day one to the party. And so for 2 years, in my initial time, people wouldn't work out. We did the traditional discipline them, put behavior management plans in place, or whatever, that's a term for residents, but the equivalent for an employee. And after 2 years were done, and turning over, I looked and thought, right now, here's who I've got today, here's who I had 2 years ago. They look exactly the same. That's when I started adjusting my behavior. As opposed to trying to have them change, I started recognizing these are the folks that want to be here. I better learn how to work with them. So I started developing relationships with them, creating all kinds of internal paths for them to succeed, some leadership groups, training, and then I came across Dr. Ruby Payne's work. So the things that I had kind of found by accident, Dr. Ruby Payne actually validated. And her book, A Framework for Understanding Poverty, was, as Rachel likes to say, life-changing for me. Because it validated what I had stumbled upon by accident. And it helped me move ahead much faster. So understanding that the values that these caregivers come to work with are not middle-class values. And they are going to choose. I used to struggle with, why do they do something? Why do they hide the fact that their fellow caregiver is doing something they know shouldn't be doing? Why are they staying loyal to that person as opposed to coming to us and letting us know what's going on? Once I understood that relationships are all they have to count on, they're not going to betray a relationship with a fellow caregiver or care worker for us, because when have we ever stood by them?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Laura, you actually had a transition yourself coming into assisted living from your hospital setting. Can you share that experience and how you too had to adapt to the employees that you're serving?
And having worked in acute care for 25 plus years, I mean, it was a different level of professionalism, and you came in with people who brought everything to the table at minimum on the first day. And so transitioning to assisted living and not getting that, well, of course, if I say this is, you need to do this, they would just do it, and they were like, no, we're not doing it. And I don't get it, you know, and if I had continued on as I thought it should be, I would have been working alone because I'd have fired everybody.
And how would you like that?
Well, it's not possible, number one. Number two, I had to learn that really just because they come up from a totally different place than me, and it's me. It's not them. This is who's doing this job. This is how they do it, and they really do care about what they're doing, and they really do care about the people in their care passionately. And so it's about me taking a step back and saying, all right, what did I bring to the table today to get here?
I think that's a hard thing for a manager to learn, though, to step back and look at themselves and say, what role do I play in this, instead of tossing out disciplines or, you know, trying to lay the hammer down on the employees and control them more, that by giving more freedom and more flexibility and getting input actually engages an employee a lot more.
And in our setting, our staff works unsupervised more hours a week than they work supervised. Mm-hmm. And I would suggest even in a bigger setting that that's the case, because even so they're not on your wing or they're not in your unit, or so that the folks who are drawn to this job often have years and years and years of experience, and they believe they know how to do the job. So actually stepping back and saying, well, what do they know that we're not down in the trenches, and actually having them help solve problems and listen with respect to what they're telling us it needs to be.
Right.
And I think it was really, you know, Janice did a lot of coaching, because I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Why can't they just, I'm a nurse, I know. I'm not making stuff up. I would say that all the time.
I'm a nurse, therefore I am.
Yeah, you know, and reading Ruby Payne's work was really helpful to open my eyes and say, okay, I get it. That it isn't about what I know, it's about who I am and where I come from and where they come from. And that's really important to understand. And once I got that, I earned their respect. And that's the difference.
One of the things that I struggled with at the beginning, because when you read books about what assisted living should be, they'll tell you every resident should have activities all day long, and that they should be engaged, and the staff actually balks at that. They'll say, no, they don't want to do this, or no, they're old, or they really don't enjoy it, they're an introvert, they would rather be in their room. And for years I thought, well, the books say one thing, and therefore we should be doing what the books say. But now I start to actually understand that if a staff member says, this isn't working for this resident, we should stop doing it with that resident.
Or the conversation at mealtime after I worked here for a few years, I'm like, you know, I thought about that. We want people to be visiting and engaged during meal times, but sometimes that's a job, just to get food from plate into mouth, and they don't want to talk. You talk to them and they look at you like, what are you doing, lady?
Their biggest job is digesting at that point, really. I mean, and other needs met, and we come in, and I would go and say, I'll show them. And pretty soon they were all migrating off because they're tired. They have a routine, and sorry, lady, you don't fit it. That's nice, you're a nice girl, and I gotta go. You know, okay.
Or they'll say you talk too much.
Yeah. Why are you sitting at my table? You know, and so what the staff do know is those people, why they are like they are. And once the value of having that staff grow as a team and stay put is just, there is no monetary value you can put on that.
So how do you think you approach your employees differently? You've talked about some philosophical differences that you follow, but what is different in actually how you lead them, how you manage these.
I'm inspired by them. Like when I learn the backstory or the things that our employees have overcome, I'm inspired every day by the struggles they've had in life and where they are today. And I truly respect them. They are my favorite part of my job is working with our staff members. Yeah, it's.
I'll build on that in that it's about respect. Actually, genuinely, how many times have you heard me say, it's a staff full of smart people. I mean, we have folks who, even though this is the work they chose to do, it's such a broad job. They have to not only know cooking and cleaning and how to socialize with the residents, they have to know things about medical care. Unintelligent people don't make it in this job. So I think actually recognizing that and respecting all that they bring and being so thankful, grateful that they chose us and they stay with us.
And I think the key for me, I ask, I don't tell. This is what I see. Why do you think that is? What do you think we could do? They know far more than I ever will. And I know a lot about our residents, but they know them. They have a really personal, deep relationship with them. And 9 times out of 10, they know what needs to be fixed to help someone who's having a challenge.
And sometimes they know what's important. That being a nurse, you might come at it from the medical aspect, where the caregiver sees them as a much bigger piece than just a medical problem. And I mean, sometimes I think I laugh at us that we're worried about something and they're thinking, why are you worried about that?
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah, they have a perspective, and they really know. Where I'll say, well, this is going on, and they're like, yeah, they seem okay to me. They're okay. They haven't changed. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Janice, you had a really interesting perspective on insubordination.
Oh.
And that you actually said there really isn't insubordination, it's just behavior. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Right. That actually came about when we had a manager come to me with a complaint about a staff member who had been insubordinate. And I said, let's back off a minute. I want to understand what led up to this, because it's my belief that there is no such thing as insubordination. It's interaction between two people. And if somebody's at the point where they're doing something that could be called insubordination, they're frustrated, they're angry, and what got them there? And as managers, I think there's more responsibility on our part to understand how we got there. That I'm not going to expect the employee to stay away from that place. I'm not going to put that employee in that place. At least I'm going to try not to say that I haven't had an altercation, but that's my view on, I don't believe in insubordination. I don't believe that it serves us well in this environment.
And I think that it's about cultural differences and what I view as insubordination. They're like, well, no, that's just how you communicate with people. And so, again, going back to understanding who is that person? What are they doing? And what did I do to light this fire? So that I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, why would you speak to me like that? Okay, how did I get here? That I'm feeling like that. What's the deal? You know, and that's a skill that's hard to learn. But once you get it, it's like, oh yeah, idiot. You know, why would you do that? You know, it takes practice, and it does. It's not like you're perfect at it, but you can acknowledge it, and then you're not walking around saying, "Well, we're going to fire them. We're going to do a plan of correction. They're in big trouble." You know.
Yeah, who does that serve?
Yeah, really.
They go on down the street and work for the next assisted living, and here we are starting to. We have to find somebody, we have to train somebody.
Well, and I find, too, sometimes the things that we get upset at employees about, if we step back and look at ourselves, we're doing the exact same
exactly. If we stop behaving like that.
We're not impacting ourselves the way that,
in the mirror first.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from you ladies sharing is that if we want to have a lower turnover rate, if we want to retain and actually grow our employee base versus constantly revolving them and turning them over, that we actually have to stop and ask questions to acknowledge their experiences, to see that they have the passion, that they really care for these residents, and to invite them to be part of that decision making and just have, involved in the process rather than a dictatorship telling them what to do. We're working in collaboration, trying to grow the business and best serve the residents together.
Develop a relationship.
Yeah.
I encourage managers to step back and think about their best and their worst managers. What made their best the best? What made the worst the worst? And try to learn from both and either apply or not apply it to your own practices. And never expect more from your employee than what you're willing to give yourself.
Well said. Thanks for sharing, ladies.